I believe that you're all here with a clear purpose. That purpose must be your one and only resolve. For the duration that you're going to be here, folks, I ask you to forget everything else that's happening in your lives. I know lives aren't easy. I've been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. So I know what it's like. But you have come here to make a huge investment of your time, when there were a million other things you could be doing right now. But as with anything in life, to get a good return with something, you have to put yourself, how much percent? 20? 20? 100, okay. 100%. 99% doesn't cut it. 100%. All the other problems that you would have had in your mind as you left home, leave them behind. Leave them outside this door. Don't worry, they'll be there to collect when you leave. I assure you, we will not take away any of your problems. We are here to give you, not take from you. So don't you worry. All your problems will be safe just outside the door. But you must all come here with an open mind. I like to appeal to the intellectuals. I'm not someone who likes to speak to people of blind faith, because I'm not a person of blind faith. I like to speak to people who are intellectuals, intelligent people, who will not take things at face value, who will always analyze things, and with common sense, try to make sense of what it is we're talking about. And through the application of these principles into your life, you will begin to see the truth. I will always be sincere with you. That I can guarantee. I will be sincere with you. But sincerity and truthfulness are not necessarily one and the same. Because I can be sincerely wrong. Can't I? I could be telling you something that is entirely wrong, but I'm being sincere. I think it's the truth, so I'm sharing it with you, but I could be wrong. I can only guarantee to you of my sincerity. Whether what I'm telling you is the truth or not, that has to be tested. You have to test that. I can promise you that I'll be sincere with you. But you must promise yourself that you will test everything I tell you. Don't take anything I say at face value. You must be analytical. And it's actually quite risky preaching or speaking to a bunch of people who don't do that. Because if you're blind believers, it's very risky talking to you guys. Because say I use a metaphor, it's like jumping off a cliff. If you're a bunch of fools, the next thing you're going to do is go and try it out. And then everyone's going to come and point the finger at me. Now it's very difficult to talk about the Dhamma with fools. That's why the Buddha says, the Dhamma is not for the foolish. It's for wise people. Panyavanta sayan dhammo, nayan dhammo duppanyasa. This Dhamma is for the wise people, not for the fools. Okay, so I will guarantee that I'll be sincere, provided you guarantee that you will analyze everything I tell you, and you will make sense of it. All you have to do is, one, pay complete attention. Because if you don't pay attention, you're going to miss things I say. You're only going to hear bits and pieces of it. And then the risk with hearing bits and pieces of it is you're going to start filling in the blanks. That's very dangerous. Because you're going to fill in the blanks the way you know it. That's a very risky job. Right? So you have to pay attention. So falling asleep doesn't help with that. I'll try to keep you awake, but you must help me. Don't fall for the temptation of catching up on sleep, right? Must have had a long week, most of you. Good time to catch up on my sleep. Comfortable chair, right? Air-conditioned room. Perfect concoction for a good sleep. Right? I'm keeping an eye on all of you. Especially the monks and the anagarikas. Okay? I'm informed that you guys are repeat offenders. Don't make me have to kick you out. Because this is important, right? I have practically nothing to gain out of doing this sermon. Because what I'm going to tell you, I already know. So I'd rather be listening to someone preach to me than me preaching to you. I'm always a student. I will forever be a student. So I'd rather listen than speak. But if you don't pay attention, you will miss out on things. So today, I want you all to leave. No, don't worry, I'm not going to stop the question there. I want you all to leave with a good, clear understanding of the fundamentals of Buddhist philosophy. We know that the Buddha comes into this world once in a very long time, and he preaches to us anicca, dukkha, anatta. The entirety of Buddhism, if you were to summarize it into 3 words, it would be anicca, dukkha and anatta. Various misinterpretations down the line, going back to history, completely threw us off tracks. The reason it's very rare to find an arahant these days, or even noble ones, anagamis, sotapannas these days, is because a lot of this teaching got misinterpreted. People started to fill in the blanks the way they knew it. This is why I say don't fill in the blanks. If you pay attention properly, then there won't be any blanks for you to fill. Because I sense that sometimes when we talk about anicca, people interpret this in various ways, and sometimes it can just become something that you know the word, but the essence behind it, the feeling behind it, the gravity behind it is lost. And then we just go back to the old ways. So if the meaning behind anicca is lost, it doesn't matter whether you call it anitya or anicca. It doesn't matter then, if the meaning behind the word is lost. This is very important. Using examples, we will discuss that today. You've all heard of the Big Bang? So there's a theory that the entire universe was once a single point, a singularity, and at one point this singularity exploded, and that was the Big Bang, and the entire universe as we know today is a result of that, right? So if you went back in time many billions, if not trillions of years, and you reverse that time, if you were to reverse time, you'd go back to this singularity, this one point in the universe. If you were to think of Buddhist philosophy in the same context, rewind, or rather collapse all of Buddhism into one word, and that would be anicca. So where there's no anicca, there's no Buddhist teaching. Buddhist teaching does not exist where there is no anicca. Where there is Buddhist teaching, there has to be anicca. It's just a simple word. It's not a long word, it's a very simple word. But the meaning behind it is very profound. Reason you and I are still in samsara is because we haven't yet fully grasped the meaning behind it. The day you completely grasp the full meaning behind it, and the day you have completed your application of it, is the day you have completed your journey in samsara. You will no longer travel in samsara. When the Buddha was asked, what does one have to do to attain Sotapanna? He said, contemplate on anicca dukkha anatta. And then when asked, what does one have to do to become a Sakrudagami, and then Anagami, and then an Arihat? He kept on saying, reflect and contemplate on anicca dukkha anatta. And even for an Arahant, the Buddha's advice was, contemplate on anicca dukkha anatta. So you can see the significance that even the Buddha laid out on these three terms, anicca, dukkha and anatta. You know for a fact that your grandparents didn't get this. Right? They came into this world at the wrong time. What a pity. Had it not been for anicca, I wouldn't be here today. I wouldn't be a monk today, had it not been for that. I'd be living the life that I was used to and just going on various pursuits. It may be that your great-grandchildren will miss the boat as well. It may be. Perhaps this is a very short resurfacing of the true Dhamma. You know how many obstacles there are in terms of getting this Dhamma out, right, to people. Every time we open our mouths, right, there's a whole bunch of people coming and saying, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Everyone wants us to shut up. And that's acceptable because what we propose is a theory to bring existence to a close, existence to an end. Because existence is problematic. But for those people who don't see that, existence is problematic. They want to exist, but exist happily. People want to exist happily. In other words, they want to be and happy at the same time. So, be happy. Let's all be happy. The thing is, the two words cannot exist. They cannot coexist. You can't be and happy at the same time. You can either be or you can happy. See, there isn't even a word that you have to use the word be before saying happy, because that is all the world knows. Right? Language is a construct to enable people to communicate. People who live in this world to communicate. That's why you need this preposition before the word happy. You can't just say I'm happy. Let's all happy. Right? You can't even say it like that. It just sounds wrong. Because people's philosophy of happiness is to be and happy at the same time. Be happy. But this is why whenever we talk about something that brings existence to an end, people just don't get it. And those who don't get it, then they start to fear, they start to worry. Now with the upcoming political changes in the country, in the upcoming elections, who knows what can change. I'm not here to talk about politics, but what I'm saying is, the country's future can go anyway. We can't see the future. We can't foretell the future. So it may be that whoever, let's say, comes to power, they take an ultimatum and say, right, that's it. You shall no longer preach the Dhamma. You can only talk about the conventional teachings that everyone else does. They stopped us from leaving the monastery. It may be that at some point they'll say, right, you can't preach to people. They can come and offer you alms, but you can't preach the Dhamma if you're going to be talking about anicca dukkha anatta. So while we still can, let's try and get this. Vaharaka Loku Hamdru, he came into this world and gave us this gift. And of course he passed away. But there were some who were clever and wise enough to take his teaching while he was still here. But then, all these, all the links of this chain will one day erode and decay and die. And then we got to think about what's going to be left behind for us and our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren. This is why I say, I can't begin to tell you how lucky you all are to have come into this world at just the right time. How you made this appointment is just beyond me. You timed it perfectly. Time in the stock market is easier than this. I went to buy your shares and went to sell it. Oh, it's so much easier than this. Than timing human birth and when to come into this world. You timed it perfectly. Your great-great-great-grandchildren might come in at the wrong time. And you know that your parents and maybe sometimes your grandparents, they definitely came in at the wrong time. Today we don't know what's happened to them or what will happen to them. But you all can determine your futures. The past is gone, the future is for us to decide. And that all depends on what we decide to do now. Right? So despite all those things you could be doing today, you have all decided to come here. You are making a huge investment of your time, something that you cannot buy with money. I think pretty much anything else you can buy with money. You can buy people with money, right? You can buy anything else with money. There's one thing you can't buy with money, and that is time. You can spend time and buy money, but you can't spend money and buy time. So it doesn't work that way. So to say that time is money, that's not correct. Because if time is money, then you should be able to spend either and get the other. They're not interchangeable, are they? No. Some of the things I'll be talking to you about today can be quite subtle, right? So you have to pay attention, good attention. Let me start off by saying this. See, our minds, they tend to have a self-defense mechanism. Let me explain what I mean by this. We don't generally like to think about things that we don't like to think about. So unpleasant things we don't like to think about. Things that left us unhappy. Things that happened in our lives, events which didn't make us happy, but rather made us sad, disappointed us. We don't generally like to think about these things. Sometimes, for example, if I say the word school days, okay? Now thoughts will come flooding to your mind, school days. But generally those thoughts will be pleasant ones. There'll be a mix of all, right? So everyone has a mix. It's a mixed bag. You'll have pleasant memories of school days and you'll have unpleasant memories of school days. But generally the thoughts that come flooding back to your mind, the memories that come back into your mind will be pleasant ones, like being with your best friend, going on a school trip, class trips, right? Singing, having a good time, going out with your mates, things like that. Maybe if you used to sing, or maybe you took part in a competition, prize giving day, right? Things like this. Getting beaten up at school. These are not things that would generally come to mind, not unless prompted. Or the day you wet your pants at school. Right? These are not thoughts that will generally come to mind unless prompted. Because this is the mind's self-defense mechanism. And this is good, because the mind always likes to be happy. That's a great thing. I'm glad that that's the case. Because if your mind had a tendency of wanting to be unhappy, then this would be an uphill battle. Trying to teach you the path to happiness, the Noble Eightfold Path, trying to teach you about the supreme bliss of Nibbana will be an uphill battle. If your mind's tendency was to be unhappy, but your mental tendency is to be happy. Is that not true? Everything we do in our lives is to be happy, right? So your natural inclination is to be happy. This is why your self-defense mechanism kicks in the moment someone says something. An input comes into your mind and all the memories that generally come back to you are pleasant ones. So if I say work, again, naturally, by default, you'll at least struggle to come back with some pleasant memory of work. Perhaps the day you got the job, or perhaps being with your friends, maybe Friday nights, right, after work, whatever. Generally, the unpleasant memories are not the first memories to come into your mind. And again, this is good, because there are gates. This is your self-defense mechanism. So it's good, nothing wrong with that. And also, we humans have a tendency to forget bad events, bad memories, right? Bad events that might have happened in life, things which made us disappointed. This is why, if you've lost your mother, then it's only when someone reminds you, perhaps a tear comes, your eyes start welling up. But if someone doesn't remind you of this, then, these thoughts don't generally come to mind. That's why people say time is a healer, right? Over time, the mind's self-defense mechanism will start erasing or start suppressing bad memories. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is we need to be able to understand that this is how the mind works and address it accordingly. Because the mind doesn't like to think about things which it finds unpleasant, when we think about and contemplate on Buddhist philosophy, if you begin to see certain concepts as being unpleasant, then the mind will automatically shut down or shut them out. So for example, that there's a practice that is called meditation on the impurities. You will have come across this, meditation on impurities. This is the English interpretation of Asubha Bhavana, impurities. So people I have identified in recent times, 32 parts of the body which they claim to be impure, right? So hair, nails, teeth, skin, and various other parts of the body. And they say these things are impure, as in dirty, ugly, ugh, right? And therefore, you focus and contemplate on the fact that these things are dirty. Shouldn't touch, they're kaki. Don't touch them. This is the meditation on impurities. The problem is, you have your mind's self-defense mechanism kicks in. And the moment you say, my hair is ugly, is dirty, your mind does not want to think about it in that way. Your mind does not want to think about it that way. Because your mind is naturally positive. It likes to think pleasant things. When think about this, right? As human beings, do you not recognize within yourself as well as in other people that people generally like to hear appreciation from other people? Who here does not like to be appreciated by someone else for something you've done? Now, when someone appreciates you for something, you like to hear that, right? And when someone is engaged in fault finding, then generally your mind automatically starts coming up with excuses. This is why I had to do that. This is why I had to do this. But if someone appreciates you, then you will wholeheartedly accept it. Sometimes even if it's not you that's actually responsible for what the good thing that has been done. Sometimes in your mind you're thinking, actually, it wasn't me that did it. Should I say that it wasn't me but my friend? No, I'll just keep quiet for now. You'll take the credit anyway. But if it's blame, now that's a different story. I'll take the credit, but when it's blame, oh, hang on. Wasn't me. That wasn't me. You're barking up the wrong tree, mister. It wasn't me. Somebody else. Right? Again, this is the mind's self-defense mechanism. The reason for this is we have this me, self, within our minds. For as long as there's a self within the mind, this is, of course, preservation. Preserving the self. You'll always want to preserve the self. The self is given great value. Me, right? Me is a valuable thing. I am a valuable person. So therefore, you should never undermine me. Overvalue me? That's fine. Don't undermine me. Give me more credit than I deserve? I'll take that. Just don't undermine me. I don't like that. So that is the mind's natural tendency. Now, the problem with this is, so therefore, when you start contemplating on the impurities, you're trying to force the mind to look at yourself. Remember that until you become at least an anagami, or at least a sotapanna, and usually it's difficult to break the connection, this mental connection that the body and the mind are not the same thing. In other words, not the body and the mind, but rather the self is a fabricated entity, and this body, this is not the self. Think about this. When you stand in front of the mirror, okay, say you're going out with friends or for a party or whatever, you stand in front of the mirror and then you beautify yourself, do you know? Brush your hair, makeup, eyebrows, lips, whatever, some jewelry maybe. Why do you do this? So you don't do this? Okay, so why do you do this? Yeah, to make yourself look presentable, to look good. Because I need to look good. So mentally, your figure that you see in the mirror is you. It's a representation of you. Yes, of course you say, this is my face, right? But mentally, in your mind, you don't really think of the face and me are two different things. You think of the face as being my face. It's not just a face that I'm using. Have you ever felt it that way? This is a body that I use? No, we never think of it that way. We think this is my body. That I am this body. So when I say talk about yourself, you'll say this is my name, this is my this is where I come from, this is my favorite color, I am this tall, right? This is I am this this is the color of my hair, this is my complexion. You talk about yourself and you're already starting to talk about attributes of your physical appearance. So really, this physical appearance is a projection of yourself. This is how we believe it. This is how we feel. This is very natural. We'll go on to whether it's correct to feel this way or not later on, but this is a very natural sensation. To feel that the body is a physical representation, projection of the self. So this is why when, for example, let's say your mascara, right, starts to, it's wet. Right, you've just gotten wet in the rain, and your mascara has now started to, right? So it starts to smudge, and then you have to adjust it. So you quickly take your pocket mirror from your handbag, right? And I've seen plenty of people do this, especially on the commute, morning commute, right? Throughout the journey, that's what people do. Look in their mirrors and then they put on their makeup. So people don't like for someone else to see